Welcome to season 2 of Diagnostic Guru. I'm incredibly excited to invite our next rock star guest, Marcy Ewald. She's actually a co-founder and CEO of a company, ThinkNimble. They work on product and engineering studio that helps early stage companies build with speed and intention. I'm super excited to dig in with Marcy today about her entrepreneurship and around some of her statements that she has on her LinkedIn account around how she's loves to be in uncharted territories, and her statement that she believes in doing well while doing good. So we're definitely going to talk about the good today, but I hope to dig into some of the bad and some of the ugly. So Marcy, thank you for coming and helping us kick off season 2.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, listen, this is the first one. We're going to go right to it. So as the theme of our podcast is we really like to talk about the 3 themes of what is the good, what is the bad, and what is the ugly. So if you could kind of touch on each one of those themes in your world and share with the audience, some of your experiences.
Yeah. So I think for me, I get to see a lot of the good. I think the acceleration of tech and how it touches every part of our lives has been really exciting. And I think I get to see a lot of places where industries are really being changed for the better by tech being involved in them. And so for me, it's been really fun to work, for example, with criminal cases being able to be used by an AI interpreter to help judges undo their bias, or just like really interesting, deep work around the intersection of doing good in the world and how technology can advance those folks who have like-minded ideas. And so for me, that has been just a really great opportunity to take what we know and apply it to something that is needed in the world. So for me, the good is alive and well right now. Um, I think the bad. So I've always found myself just to be a terrible like recruiter and hirer. I find it really hard to work with people who to set like the right boundaries for people, right? To be able to say like this is where I want you to be able to grow and learn and make your own decisions, and this is where I want you to just kind of like execute on the thing that I know how to do. And I don't do a good job describing that role. I don't do a good job giving people like the right level of autonomy. I have a hard time explaining what good looks like. I have a hard time getting them from A to Z, like helping them think through my thought process and explaining what Z should look like and then letting them work there. So for me, the bad is like figuring out how do you hire and grow other people's skill sets in a way that helps them really become great and amazing, but also kind of gets done what you need to get done in the meantime. And so for me, that's like a big piece of the bad in my day-to-day work. And then do you want me to just go straight to ugly?
Oh, go for it, please.
Oh man. Okay. So when I started our first startup, we sold it during our Series B round, and it was one of those sales that like it was the right thing for the company, it was the right thing for the investors, and we ended up in a situation at a large accounting firm where we were kind of helping implement the software for a lot of different other companies. And it was very interesting work, but it was not necessarily mission aligned for us. And so we started thinking about what to do next. And we started ThinkNimble out of that kind of like ennui, if you will. And so for a while, I think we kind of drifted. I think we kind of missed an opportunity to really think about a 10-year vision and start executing towards that, or to think about like what's the good we want to leave behind in the world, and what do I want my legacy to be, for lack of a better term. And the company that I started from that kind of has that built into its DNA, where it almost feels like it's a drifting company. It could kind of be used for different things at different times. And that's been really great for me over the last 5 years, like with young kids. And, it kind of gives you the flexibility that you need. But I do think that I missed an opportunity to really be intentional about the type of change I wanted to see and like grow a
Mhm.
company that could be that kind of change. And so for me, I think that's been my biggest regret over the last, 5 to 10 years, is like setting that vision and working towards it. And instead just kind of feeling like there are some days where we're putting pieces in place in the right direction, and some days where we're kind of drifting in different directions. So I think that's probably the summary of those things here.
So let's work backwards on the
hmm
ugly piece. So when you sold the company, were you still involved with it after the fact? And how soon did you recognize sort of the self failure that you're explaining? And were you able to rectify it with that company? Or do you feel that you're utilizing that energy into your current venture in your new company?
Yeah, I think so. When we sold, the first company was called Aspire, and we sold it into a company called Rafa PC, which is now Markham.
Uh-huh.
And it was different enough work that I spent a lot of time thinking about how to do that work well. And so it was a little bit, I mean, distracting is not quite the right term because it was good work and we were helping people and it was like definitely the
Hmm.
right call for the company as a whole. But it was distracting from the idea that there was this like sense of listlessness around it. And then when we left and we started Think Nimble, I think for the first year or so, it was really exciting work because we were getting new clients. We were really helping people. It felt like we were growing. We were really like feeling that product market fit. But the thing that I was selling was the ability to create technology for people in industries that I cared about. So ed tech, fintech, places where I think, you can really do a lot of good for a lot of people. So like
Hmm.
mission alignment of our clients was very high and the clients were doing really good work in the world, but I don't know that ThinkNimble was necessarily doing good work in the world. We were recruiting great people, really learning from them, like growing a good team. But if you asked anyone who worked for us, what's the thing that if ThinkNimble changes the world, it will have changed the world in? I don't think anyone could have answered that question.
Hmm.
And so that
Interesting.
seems, I don't know, just for us, it was like a very big shift because we're big, like mission driven people. So I think in the last year or so, we've really gotten a lot tighter with that. But
Okay.
yeah, I think we kind of drifted for a while.
I feel the same. Like it's really hard to hone in on what your mission is. I'm struggling with that a little bit, like
Yeah.
with Diagnostic Guru, and I feel it shifts, right? Depending on who you talk to, the clients, who you're engaging with. And do you feel that you were being swayed more by your clients and you were stepping away from what you thought your mission was?
Yeah, definitely. Uh Part of the reason we started Think Nimble was this idea that you could impact 10 clients and each of those clients could have a million people that they impacted. And so
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to build a 10 million person company. You can build a company that serves 10 and they can serve 10 million. And so
Mm-hmm.
that scale was kind of the original goal, right? The
Mm-hmm.
ability to impact people that way. Um, but it turns out that then you don't really get to see those 10 million people, right? I only ever see the 10 people I'm working with. And so their opinions were very much driving where we were in a given day. And if they said, I want to go in this direction, it's hard to not go, you're making payroll, you're building team, they're paying mortgages, your people are paying mortgages with the salaries that you're
Yeah.
paying them, right? And so you kind of
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to move where the clients are moving. And so I think it's a lot of that, like figuring out what's the scale and leverage that you can pull, and like, is that worth it if what does it look like on a day-to-day basis for you? Does it still feel fulfilling?
Yeah. And then with the ugly piece or the bad piece, you talked more about this, recruitment and individuals and really honing in on their skill set and aligning it with your own. But they say as leaders, especially when, I mean, you a co-founder and an executive, you really only should have maybe six at most, maybe seven direct reports, and then you expect them to funnel it down, right? The same sort of management style. But yeah, it's I think trust is a hard thing,
Yeah.
you
One of
know.
the things we talk about a lot too is I feel like that's a nut I haven't cracked. And so handing it to someone and expecting them to do it better than I can do it is one of those things they say you should do, right? Like hire people
Yeah.
smarter than you who are better at that than you. And in theory, that makes sense. But in practice, I don't know how that happens, but I also don't know how to do it. If I don't know how to do it, how do I know if they're doing a good job? And so for me, that's been one of those things that's like very much on a growth pattern. So,
Well, I think
yeah,
it's humbling though that you recognize this. I don't want to say it's a weakness, but maybe just a little kink
yeah,
in your armor of an area that you want to hone in on and get better at. So it just shows that you're human.
yeah. And it's one of those things too. I love watching things like I would love looking at companies that do it really well, right? Where every
Hmm.
person you talk to has this same shared principles. So one of the things we do with our clients a lot is we sit down in the first week and we're like, tell us where you're trying to go so that when I make a decision in the code, it represents what you would make a decision with your client or your customer, right? So that
Mm.
we're kind of like operating on this shared frame of reference. And so kind of replicating that inside of a company, a large company, I think is just such a cool thing to see happen. Where if you ask someone at a water cooler, how they would make X decision, it's similar to someone who has the actual expertise to make that decision. I just think that's excellent leadership, and I think that's something that I'm still practicing at. But we'll get there. That's what careers are for, learning.
Yeah, but I love that. I was just thinking about you gave this kind of this light bulb idea in me, thinking about the code and how it applies more to the human element piece, because tech is
Yeah.
very can be very black and white, right? And so I can see how that can be very rewarding that you take that sort of foundational technology and it becomes sort of its own human.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think there's a big misconception about tech being useful in and of itself. I
Mhm.
personally believe tech is only useful if someone uses it. And to make that happen, you have to know so much about what that end customer needs and
Mhm.
what their purchasing power is, why they're buying it, what's their pain. Are you actually solving that pain with this thing? I was just listening to this podcast about like the product of Airbnb, and there was this big discrepancy between like, is the product the thing, the app, or is the product like the homes that someone walks into? And the
Yeah,
vast majority of someone's experience with Airbnb is the 7 days that they're in a house,
absolutely.
not the
Yeah.
30 seconds that they used to book, or even the 5 days they used to like scroll through and book, right? And so for me, that's been a big thing we try to push with all of our clients is like tech is only as useful, and also all of the jargon around tech, all of that is only as useful as if you can sell it and you can figure out someone who needs it and it can make someone's lives better. And so we spend a lot of time figuring out why to build the tech or like not building features. And sometimes I think that's a huge shift for people coming in to work with us. And they're like, well, you're not just going to build. We're like, well, why? What do you need it?
Mhm.
What if you spent that in marketing? What would happen then? Right. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, I just think there's a lot of open space in that field right now.
Do you find that it's really hard to find what that unique thing is? Because technology has become so advanced and so smart. I mean, not one company can necessarily own the market. Of course, there's a few of them out there, right? Like a Microsoft or a Google or whatever. But do you find that still challenging in your space?
It's so hard. That's part of what is really hard about ThinkNimble is 99% of startups fail. So for us, success looks like doubling, maybe tripling that percentage, but it still means
Mm,
that like 95% of what we work on is not going to go through, right? And
wow.
that might mean a successful acquisition. It might mean that person gets to go work somewhere that they've always wanted to work. So what we've really had to reframe it as is like this is an opportunity for someone to take ownership over their career and to be
Mm,
able to say like my job is not just to take information from a middle manager, crank on it from 9 to 5, clock out and go like make a difference in my home or make a difference in my
yeah.
community, but to kind of like put that into their work. And so what we've really like reframed our work as is like giving people the taste of what it means to own your day to day or to
Mm,
feel like you have control over your work product and how it shows up in the world. And I think
mhm,
entrepreneurship is the easiest way to do that. It's a really great way to feel like you make a difference when you show up to work every day. And that feeling, you spend so much of your time at work. I just think it's
mm,
crazy that so many people hate what they do. And to
yes.
some extent, it's unavoidable, right? Like if you are trying to make your mortgage or like feed your parents or do what, like you sometimes do have to do work you don't want to do. But for a lot of us, I think we trap ourselves into that cycle. And so that's been really freeing with Think Nimble is even if a startup fails, if that person can go on and work at a VC or do something else, right? They've kind of like changed the trajectory of what they're able to do with their career. And that's been really rewarding, even if the startup world is still hard to crack.
Oh my God. Yeah, I've been at five. I always had this philosophy that, and this is why I went to school forever and I went down this long track, and that I want to wake up every day and not it feel like a job, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You're right. We spend the majority of the people we spend our time with, and our focus is in the workspace.
Yep.
And it really can eat into your personal life.
Yeah. And obviously that's like a position of privilege to be from, but I feel like there's a lot of the world that people don't get to see. And it is, yeah, like if people, I don't know, if you don't know how the IPO market works, then a lot of the startup market feels like a black box. And this whole system of how money moves through that is like fascinating. And if you're just sitting at like a desk at Capital One, you're a huge part of that, but you probably don't see the machinations
Mm.
around you, like and how they work. And so being able to expose people to that at the very like base level of entrepreneurship has been really exciting to see what they can then go do with that information and really change their course of their career.
That's so true. Oh my goodness. Well, with that, how about a little bit about have you experienced public failure and what was that like and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a really hard time with the word failure because
Yeah, me too.
I just I don't know. Most of the time. So the thing I was thinking about when you asked that was that there was a time where was a brand new startup founder and I sent out an email and like I still wake up with like these, those nightmare dreams that you have about being like in seventh grade. Like this is the dream that I wake up to. I sent it to the wrong company and like the CEO
Uh-oh.
was really mad. It was our first client. It was one of those things that just
Yeah.
like it seemed like a big deal and like was it a big deal? No, but like I did the wrong thing. And the real thing that I think really bothered me about that was that I knew it was important and I still didn't spend time on it. And so that to me feels like a failure because it was a mismatch of like my anticipated expectation and like what I should have done. A
Hmm.
lot of times I have trouble with the word failure because like if I try really hard and it doesn't work, I don't know that that's like like that's kind of like what happens. Like part of what my job is to sow hundreds of seeds and to see one of them grow, not to
Hmm.
see them all grow. And so for me, failure is more of a mismatch of like what I put into it and that not being enough, as opposed to the thing not working, because that's not necessarily something I had control over if I put everything I had into it. So for me, the biggest thing I learned from that like really early failure was that if it didn't matter, I shouldn't have done it, right? Like if I didn't care about sending the email the right way, then like it just shouldn't have gone out. But
Yeah.
if I do care, then like I have to do it right. And if I do it right, then that's all I can really control. Um, but yeah, failure and goals are like those things to me that I think are just like a little bit hard. I don't know. For me, they're like a personal mismatch. And I know that's like not a great answer, but
No, I think that's a beautiful answer because one, failure, I feel that we take words so literally to their definition and we don't think outside of the box there. But in this example, is a lesson learned. It's an opportunity to learn from yourself, right? So it's actually a success. I mean,
yeah,
that was a success for you because you're like, okay, now I know how to approach this differently. And I love the concept of like, if you put something into it, your heart and soul, and it still doesn't come to fruition, that's not really failure. It wasn't meant to be, you know?
yeah. We yeah, so I have a really hard time coming up with like a list of failures because
Yeah.
to some extent, the idea of like shame being a mismatch between like your
Yeah.
value system and your actions, like that to me feels like where like shame is something that I have a lot more examples of. Or that, what's the other word for that? I don't know, shame, whatever the opposite of shame is,
Yeah.
that's not bad. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like there's more examples of that to me where it's like a mismatch of the thing that I thought I was going to do and the way I actually showed up. So like I have a lot of meetings where I feel like I wanted to have an outcome, but I showed up and I wasn't thoughtful enough or I didn't listen enough or whatever, right? But those to me are like places where my values didn't match my actions. And that is more important to me than like whether or not something happened or didn't happen, because
Hmm.
I actually don't know that any of us have any control over that. And the public idea of failure, like if I got up on a stage and I had really prepared and then I totally messed up and didn't say all the words in the right order, like that's that's okay, right? Like I
Yeah.
did everything I could and then everything happened from there. And I think that might be defined as a failure. So anyways, that word in and of itself, I know I'm harping on this, but I feel like failure is such a big thing in the tech industry where people are like, hey, what's like the thing that's not going well for you? And it's like, of course things aren't going well for us. Like
Yeah.
this is none of us know what we're doing. We're all just like kids in adult clothing, like typing on our computers. Um, and so I feel like throwing that up there to make us seem more human almost makes us seem less human because it's like if you're trying, like that's all you can ask of anyone to do, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thinking you control the outcome, like you have a little bit less control than I think, we all want to believe that we do.
Yeah. And for me, uh, being a scientist, I mean, my experiments had to fail, otherwise they wouldn't succeed. And I actually enjoyed it, right? I was like, okay, now I love the problem solving piece of it, you know?
Yeah. When you find the end, right? You can
Yeah.
see the
Yeah.
end and say, okay, well, is there a way around that? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can we go over it? Like, what's the end point, right? And so I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that to me is like also exciting. I agree.
Well, I would love to, because we're kind of diving into that. Maybe you could give us some hope that you think for women in science and technology, and where do you think it'll take us to get there, where we are currently today and where we're going in the future?
Yeah, I would say our entrepreneurs are maybe 60-40 men to women. And so for
Mm,
me, that's been great. I think it is
that's a good
partially
number.
helpful. It
I'm a
is,
little
yeah.
surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it helps that we have a woman in the founding team, and a lot of our team is women. And so, like, we have women developers, we have women product managers, and so I think to some extent it's a little bit of a selection bias, right? They kind of see themselves in what we're doing, and so we get probably a higher percentage than are out there in the real world. But the thing that I think stops a lot of people from diving into tech is feeling like they need to know it all before they start on it. And
Mm,
the coolest thing about tech is that it's really translatable in different ways. And I think once you've been in it for a while, you realize that like the code that people are coding in now would have felt really like easy to the people who were like coding on cards and like stacking C
yeah,
code to like make whatever, right?
yeah.
Um, and so when people look at like what AI is doing now, I think they're like, well, I don't know how I'll ever know all the terminology. But the truth is that
Mm,
like the the what it's doing is the same thing, right? Like what you want to produce with it or what you're trying to get to, or the patterns that it creates are very similar to what you would do with the current set of technology, which was very similar to what you would do like like everyone knows how a coffee shop runs. You make marketing happen, and then you like have workers who build good coffee, and then your coffee's better than the coffee shop next door, and so they come to yours instead of there. Like the same rules apply in an AI enabled and an AI first company. The same rules applies in a brick and mortar,
yeah,
bar or coffee shop. And
right.
so the thing that I think is like most hopeful about tech is that it's like you don't need a PhD in it to use it. Um, and that will be even more true, right? I have written maybe 12 lines of code in my entire career, and I can now launch an entire app because I know the underlying structure of how the code works without having
Mm,
to actually code. So I can go in Claude Code and be like, do this thing. How did you do it? I don't actually like that. What is this relational database? But those are skills that don't have anything to do with coding, right?
yeah,
Like anyone who's worked in Microsoft Access knows what a relational database is, and that's like half the world, right? And so
yeah,
for me, I think the most hopeful thing is that AI will make this really accessible to a lot of people, and you can really train yourself to understand and ask the right questions so that you don't feel imposter syndrome is not the right word, but that feeling where you're like, I don't know if that's the right question to ask. Have I missed
yeah.
anything? Um, so for me, that's like the biggest hope is that I think there's like this great opportunity to put this in the hands of more people who can use it to do the thing that they wanted to do without
Hmm.
needing the capital from the old boys club to do that. And I think that will really change the face of the types of companies that we see in the next 10 to 20 years. I think it could go either way, but if we get people who know the good things working with it and understanding it and wanting to do right by the world, then I think we could really see a shift for good. And I think that would be, I don't know, I think that'd be really exciting to see more people who have the power to build something real and exciting and scalable in something that they're already an expert in.
Yeah, that's a breath of fresh air. Seriously, because I even, in my space, there's a lot of coding, machine learning, AI, and I've led teams. I mean, I've taken some coding, right, classes and I've taught myself, but I'm like, do I really have time for this?
Yeah. Well, and
you
I
know?
think everyone always says like if you were an entrepreneur and you went to an investor and you're like, well, this marketing thing, it's very complicated. I don't know how I'm ever going to understand all of the marketing things. They'd be like,
Yeah,
that's not how business works. But for some reason that answer works in tech where you can be like, I just don't know, like I don't know if I can figure it out. Like you
yeah,
can figure anything out, right? Like you figured
yeah.
out dozens of things in your life. And so for me, some reason tech is this like, I think it's because it's run by a bunch of people who are like kind of, I don't know, clicky's not the right word, but like they know what they know. And so then there's been this feeling that if you don't know what they know, you can't do what they know, but
Yeah,
you
like a
can.
cult, not a cult, but
Yeah,
I feel like there's some sort of initiation that you need to have, right, to get in.
exactly. Like, oh, you didn't code when the internet was new. And so
Yeah,
like you'll
yeah,
never understand how hard it was. And like, no, I won't. I won't understand how hard it was. But also like I can take this thing that you know how to build and ship it to a million people and you don't know how to do that job, right? And so
right.
I
The
think if we all just
execution
recognize,
piece. Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
operations, like
yeah,
figuring out so many of the companies that are going to work in the next 10 years are going to be ones that have operation chains that are just like locked, right? Like I know
yeah.
this guy who knows this guy and they can do this thing and we'll deliver it end to end. Like the tech is going to be kind of like table stakes because so many people are going to be able to do it. Um,
Hmm. Do you
so
think
I
that
don't know.
opens up? I love that. Do you think that opens up more opportunities for women?
I do. I think women are in general in organizations, there's that idea that a woman is the one in the room being like, I guess I'll go figure out how that works, right? Like,
Yes.
here's this idea. I'll go put together the team that can actually make that thing happen for the client that you already sold this to. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I think like if that person who was in that seat had the opportunity to do that twice as fast
Uh-huh.
or better or whatever, that power starts to kind of consolidate around that person. And if those tools are readily available, then I think the power to use them for the right way and to use them for good and to change the way that your industry works is there for everyone. And I just don't think it's that complicated. Like I think we want to think it is, but it's much easier than getting 30 people to do what you want in the right way at the right time and like helping them all and knowing all their kids' names and doing all that. Like that's hard, right? Like the emotional
Yeah.
intelligence of that is very hard. You can
Uh-huh.
yell at an AI and it never cries. Like it's lovely. So like it's just a tool, right? And we've
Yeah.
used so many tools in our career. Um, so for me, I think it's really exciting and I think it could be a really good equalizer.
Well, we're coming to a close. And I like to end all of my episodes with asking, what is your superpower? So if you could share with us if you know what that is.
Yeah, I think my superpower is seeing patterns in things,
Oh.
and being able to then apply that pattern to a completely different situation.
Mhm.
And I think for tech, it's particularly useful because I can see something in an industry and be able to see how it maps to another industry. But for me, it's been cool because I think at a larger scale, we have the ability to take the patterns of like creating these entrepreneurs and how we move them through learning
Mhm.
that and be able to really change access to that type of work. Um, and so that's kind of my hope is how I can use that superpower moving forward. But I think it's been really useful for me in the entrepreneurship world.
Well, that's spectacular. Did you have that at a younger age, or do you feel that it's honed in on as time gone on when you've gotten out into the working world?
I think it's why school was easy for me because I was able
Mhm.
to kind of like quickly make connections. So I have a really hard time, like I can get from A to Z, but I have a really hard time explaining the middle part. And so a
Mm.
lot of the feedback that I've got, the idea that like you get the same feedback a million times in your life, like it's constantly that like I don't see the work that you did. Like since I was little, I like didn't do math problems with like all, I never showed my work. I was like, just that's the answer. It's fine. And so I think for me, that's the flip side of the coin is like helping people walk through the steps to be able to create that type of pattern recognition. I think I just innately had it, and so I don't know how to teach it because I didn't learn it. And so it's, constantly when we get feedback, it's like she moves too fast or like she doesn't, I don't know what she wants because I don't see this messy middle part. And that's good because then I can work on that piece while the other people are working on other pieces. So
It's all up here. It's all in your conscious. So it's almost like you got to walk. Maybe subconsciously you think you're protecting them from the messiness, and you just want to get to Z. But
yeah.
really, it's maybe they want to learn from you what that is, so they understand right how you got there because they couldn't
Yeah.
do it themselves.
And I also think it's part of like, especially in an agency world, showing the value that you're adding to a
Yeah,
project.
yeah.
You have to expose that part, right? Like you have to expose the way you thought about it.
Hmm.
I can't just come up with a great answer because it seems like I just was like I woke up with that answer. Like that's that Einstein effect is not impressive in an agency world where you get paid on an hourly basis. So I had to work a lot on the messy middle.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, this has been an honor to speak with you today. I really love learning from you, and I love your approach of how you go about doing things and the success that you've been able to bring to the table in the tech world. So I'll really be following Think Nimble, and maybe I'll come to the event in October in
Yeah,
DC.
we'd love to have you. Yeah, we'd love to see you. Thanks for having me. This is a really fun conversation, and I'm excited to see what you guys can grow.